Good morning, everyone. My name is Teresa Crisanti, and I'm with the Illinois Restaurant Association, and I'd like to thank you for joining today's webinar on strategies for boosting employee retention. Today's webinar is being broadcast in English, Spanish, and Mandarin Chinese. To listen in those other languages, just use the interpretation button in your toolbar. This webinar is being presented by the Illinois Restaurant Association in partnership with the Cook County Small Business Stores. So established to ensure businesses emerge from COVID-19 intact and positioned for growth, the Small Business Source connects small business owners with expert guidance and support. Services include no-cost business advising, resources, and events that connect small business owners with a community of advisors. For one-on-one business advising, sign up at cookcountysmallbiz.org. Before we begin, I'd like everyone attending to know that the Illinois Restaurant Association remains a resource to you. Our staff is focused on providing guidance and assistance to restaurants and other hospitality businesses in Illinois. We send regular email updates to thousands of operators around the state with what you need to know for your business, and you can sign up for those on our website. For today's webinar, you can use the Q&A button in your toolbar to post your questions at any time during the presentation. Now at this time, I'd like to introduce our panelist. With us today is Rafael Akinsipi, CEO of Social Crowd. Rafael, please take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Teresa. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right. Can you guys see my screen okay? Great. So we'll jump right in, giving you a sense of our agenda today. We'll start out with a bit of introduction. So I'll share a little bit about myself and our company. Then I'll go into the state of hospitality and kind of how things are looking for the restaurant industry. From there, I'll go into strategies for retention success. And then after that, I'll cover a brief overview on Social Crowd, which is our company and kind of ways that we support restaurants. And then we'll jump into a bit of Q&A. So we'll kick things off with a bit of an introduction. So I'm Rafael Akinsipi. As Teresa mentioned, I'm the CEO and co-founder of Social Crowd. We're an employee incentive platform that supports a wide range of different restaurants, from single operators to large national chains like Sonic Drive-In. I've been in tech for well over a decade, and I've worked with a wide range of different companies. So prior to my role at Social Crowd, I was the SVP of Marketing and Strategy at HST Pathways. I was Chief Growth Officer of CaseTabs before it was sold to Bain Capital. I was a product manager at Google, working within the Google Ads business. And before that, I was a consultant. I worked with a number of different Fortune 500 companies and brands like Expedia, Chick-fil-A, Marvel, and more. So excited to take a lot of that knowledge and learnings over the years in retention and strategies that have been effective for many different organizations and share that with you guys today. So we'll jump in. So starting out with the state of hospitality, the exciting piece here is that the hospitality industry is growing faster than ever. So that's great news for everyone. Thinking about some of the stats that kind of translate there, the first piece I like to start out with is that one of the recent things that was found in a study by the National Restaurant Association is that 84% of consumers that were surveyed said they would rather eat out than cook at home. Now, that may feel obvious, but it's truly indicative of trends we've seen coming out of the pandemic, that more and more people, whether it is going to quick service, fine dining, or fast casual, are looking for more experiences at restaurants. And that's translating to more dollars being spent. In particular, that's led to nearly $1 trillion being spent at U.S. restaurants and food services. And that's an incredibly exciting stat because it tells us that more people are going out, more people are spending at restaurants, which is a huge boost for the entire industry and a great opportunity for growth. In addition, all of that growth in spending has led to over 500,000 new restaurant jobs that were added to the US market in 2023 alone. So that's exciting because people are going out more, people are spending more, and therefore we're able to hire more to be able to fill that demand. Now, with all of that in mind, this has now led to a situation where all of this growth is driving an increased competition for that talent. And whether that is due to the wages, due to opportunities around the size of the staff, competing with localized restaurants, we're all in a place where we're looking to compete for talent to not only hire them, but to retain them longer. So as we take a step forward and think about what this means for the restaurant industry, the reality is that more and more operators are struggling to retain their staff long-term, leading to increased cost and diminished service quality. And this is something that I think all of us are looking to fight back against. One of the metrics I always like to start out with when we're thinking about retention is specifically retention over the first 90 days, because studies have shown if you're able to retain an employee through that first 90 days, you have a significantly higher likelihood of them being retained long-term. So prior to the pandemic, so looking back at 2019, about 42% of restaurant employees would quit within the first 90 days, which is a pretty staggering stat. And as we look forward to where we are in 2023, that number has now grown to nearly 46% of employees are quitting within their first 90 days. And although that jump there feels like a small bump, it does give us a sense that of where that trend is heading, that within the next few years, we're very close to getting to a place where nearly half of restaurant employees are leaving the role that they're in within the first 90 days of being on the job, which I think for all of us, we can think through how difficult it already is for us to go out and recruit, hire, train those staff members. So to lose them so early into their life cycle of being an employee is incredibly critical in terms of its impact to a restaurant's business. So one of the questions that always comes up whenever we talk about these kind of trends is, well, why not just pay everyone more to try to retain them? And I think all of us probably have a collective eye roll when we hear things like just pay everyone more, because the reality is that paying everyone more hasn't necessarily always translated to higher retention. But let's look at what the numbers are actually telling us. So we'll dive in. So that question, does higher pay make employees want to stay longer? So in a recent study by Our Work that was done in 2023, they found that over the past year, 80% of restaurant jobs offered higher wages, regardless of the role, whether that was fast casual, whether that was fine dining, quick service, whether they were front of house or back of house. Collectively across the industry, there was an 80% of jobs saw a raise in their wages. So people are investing more in paying more for their talent. So we should expect, if so many jobs had higher wages, should we see higher retention? And what was actually found was that the annual turnover rate, so the number of employees that are churning before during that first year, is now at nearly 74% for hospitality employees. This is the highest that it's ever been. And this is a pretty staggering stat, because not only are we struggling to retain employees through their first 90 days, but even to that point of their first year, we're seeing nearly 74% of employees are leaving. So clearly, just paying everyone more is not the correct solution there. So this is the part that I'm excited to jump in with you guys on today, is talking about some of those strategies that are really effective, that are translating to increased retention for hospitality employees. So there's a format that we like to describe as the TIC retention strategy, and it's focused on a couple key areas and ways that you're able to retain employees through specific tactics. And the first step in the TIC retention strategy is training. Hospitality employees are 5 times more likely to quit due to miscommunication about their work. In addition to that, we like to bring in incentives. 92% of employees will repeat a specific action if they're rewarded for it, but only about 35% of employees are consistently rewarded. And then lastly is culture. Only 21% of employees feel that they are truly valued by their companies. And I think these stats here really give you a sense of the trend and the thinking, and also the behaviors across employees within the industry. But it also gives you a sense of the 3 key areas that you can focus on as a business to be able to drive increased retention. So we'll dive in. So starting out with training. before we talk about some of the specific tactics around training, I always like to lean in around the value of quality training. And this is one that's really important because the value of really good training can't be understated. Some of these things may feel a little obvious, they may feel fairly straightforward, but when you see the impact that they can have on your staff, it really becomes critical to think through. So the first piece there, enhanced customer experience. I think we've all had that experience where you go into a restaurant, there's someone who's not as familiar with the menu or not as familiar with the point of sale system or confusion in the back of house. And that all leads to a poor customer experience. And this is something that's incredibly important because for many restaurant owners and operators, yes, you have regulars, but many times people who are coming to your restaurant, this might be their first visit. They may only be able to come to your restaurant once a month, or maybe they're from out of town and this is their first time and their only time engaging with your brand. So having a consistent, high quality customer experience is critical, and training is the first step to that. Second is consistency in the service standards. Training creates really clear standards of procedures and practices for your staff to follow. And this consistency can really translate into the work that's being done, into the way that they approach their task, and also translates into your overall success and sales as a business. And third is that it boosts employee confidence and morale. Many of us here have probably had a job before where you didn't feel super confident in your own ability to do the job well. And when you have that lack of confidence or that doubt or that fear going into work, that translates into how you feel about the overall job. So it can be incredibly important to make sure that your staff feels confident in the work that they're doing. So every time they step out on the floor, whether it's front of house or they're in back of house, they're in a position where they feel like they can go out and execute well. And when you have that confidence in your abilities, it's going to translate to a positive overall feeling about the job and the company and a desire to stay with that company. Fourth is reduced errors. There's a ton of value, obviously, in reducing the errors and accidents with staff, but poorly trained staff is obviously more likely to have errors and accidents. But that goes right hand in hand with that confidence and morale, because when employees have a higher number of errors and accidents, it affects their own feelings about their job. It affects how they feel like they can be successful. It affects the way that their peers see them in their role. And all of those things, when they are negative, can lead to employee churn. And lastly, the most important, employee retention and career growth. When you invest in really effective employee training, it demonstrates to your employees that you're committed to their professional development, their professional success, and their career goals. And more specifically, when you have a clear set of training on what it looks like as an entry-level employee, it tells them here's a clear set of steps to be successful. But in addition to that, if you are successful, here's what it looks like to advance to new roles. Here's what it looks like to be able to demonstrate the qualities of potential management. So these are some of the reasons why you want to have really great training. Now, I know that all feels maybe a little straightforward, so we'll dive into what are some of the specific strategies you can take around training. So the first thing I like to always call out, this is an easy one that you can implement tomorrow, is the buddy system. So when it comes to training, for as many things as you might explain to someone, they're going to have questions. And ideally with the buddy system, you assign every new hire a buddy, someone that's ideally in the same or similar role, and someone that they're going to feel comfortable to ask the dumb questions to. Many times the things that you'll find is that when you have a buddy system, it can help employees ask those questions, think through their work, and not feel like they have to go to senior leadership for every new part that they're learning. In addition to that, you want daily checklists. So these are things that make it easy for employees to get a sense of what's the process, what's the order. You can leverage tools for them to be able to use the checklist, or you can simply have things printed out around their workstations that they can go back and leverage to make sure that they're following the right process and procedures. And then in addition to that, we always like to encourage add in some testing there. You don't want to create a dynamic of fear or concern around the job, but you do want to make sure they have the right opportunities to go in and actually prove that, hey, they are doing these steps in the right order. Then lastly, clear timelines. For every step and every process that you make your employees learn, make sure that there's clear timelines for them on how long it should take them to learn this process. Is this a new process that takes days for them to learn? Do people typically take weeks to get up to speed? And when you make it clear, it helps the employee keep their own pace. But in addition to that, it's important that you share the pace with them. So if they're on track, let them know that they're on track, or if they're a little behind, let them know that they're behind in ways that you want to see them execute or develop the knowledge more quickly. So now we'll talk through incentives. So this is one that obviously, as the leader of an employee incentive company, I'm really passionate about. And I always like to start out by saying rewards are not the same as incentives. And I'll break that down a bit. When it comes to having a rewards program many times looks like an employee action that gets rewarded. But the problem with this is that it leads to inconsistency. And let's think about this a bit. If an employee does something good and you go in and say, hey, I'm going to reward that employee, I'm going to send them a gift card or give them a free meal because they did a good job. Although that's the nice gesture, the problem is that it doesn't make it clear to the employee that, hey, that specific action created some amount of value and you'll be consistently rewarded for this going forward. And in addition to that, for other employees who may not have been rewarded, who feel as if they demonstrated that action, it can create a certain amount of resentment within your organization that leads to even more inconsistency across the team. Now, alternatively, an incentive program has a couple key elements. The first thing is that with an incentive program, you're adding in that additional factor of expectation. So when you combine expectation with employee action and reward, you get repeatable success. So as an example, let's say you introduce retention incentives into your organization and you tell employees that, hey, if you make it to your 90-day mark, you'll get a $10 gift card. If you make it to your 6-month mark, you'll get a $20 gift card. If you make it a year, you'll get a $50 gift card. It's very clear sets of expectation on what are you looking for them to accomplish. There's a very clear measurable way to say, did they complete that action? And then the reward is very clearly defined for them. And this is something you can do even beyond just retention incentives. So diving into tangible ways that you can do this, this is where I'll share a little bit on just, Social Crowd, our company. We help restaurants do this by creating a platform that they can automatically track their incentives, whether it's sales, retention, or productivity. But I'll lean in and share a little bit of what that looks like. So first, starting out with the actual expectations. So in a platform like Social Crowd, you're able to go in and set up a campaign that says, for example, we want our employees to sell 20 margaritas every week, and in exchange, they'll get 1,000 points. Then it connects to your point of sale, so it's able to track that action in real time. You assign your staff, so you can assign your wait staff, you assign your bar staff. Employees are going to get texted reminders automatically without any manager interference. And then when they hit their targets, they get rewarded those points and they can go redeem them for a gift card. Now, the critical parts that I like to call out here is that it helps you to be able to set the expectation. Every employee can see the goals that you've set for them in that campaign. It allows you to track, did the employees actually accomplish the action you've set for them? And it makes the reward direct and available and equitable for them. And I think this is really critical when you think about an incentive program versus just thinking about if you were to skip all these other steps and simply just give them a reward. There's a lot of confusion that can be created by just giving them the reward. So that covers a bit on the power of incentives. So then now we'll talk a bit about culture. So culture is incredibly critical when it comes to the way that you develop your organization. And I always like to say culture goes beyond just words. So many times when people think about culture, they think, I hear from tons of restaurant owners that we have great culture. We have all of these awesome things. And when I start to ask about how those things are translated or what's kind of the tangible actions around culture, there's a lot of things that are kind of undefined or unclear. And I think it's important to be able to be very specific and very targeted in your culture, because if you don't set a culture, the people you hire, the people you bring into your organization will develop that culture for you. So the first thing when it comes to culture is creating a positive work environment. This may sound very general or kind of things that, feel somewhat nebulous, but the reality is that, we've all seen those shows like Undercover Boss, where you see a leader come in, they're spending time within their staff, and things that they didn't necessarily imagine were happening within their company work environment are actually taking place. And there's a lot of toxicity amongst their staff that they didn't realize was there. So when it comes to creating that positive work environment, it's more than just putting signs up. It's in the way that everyone speaks to each other. It's in the way that they work. It's in the structure and the processes, the trust between different team members. And those are things that you can tangibly go in and monitor and measure and see how well they are all working together. The next is fostering that team engagement and collaboration. Now, many times people recommend, hey, do lots of things that are not just in the restaurant, but also plan time for the team to engage even outside of work. And I think there's value there, but that can be complex depending on your business and depending on your staff. So when it comes to fostering team engagement and collaboration, I always like to lean in here and talk a little more specifically about when it comes to the way that your team works. How are the handoffs taking place between your different team members? How does your back of house and front of house work with each other? How are your shift exchanges set up? And those are ways that you can go in and very specifically look at how each team member interacts, how they prep for the next team member, how they create trust with each other. And as you look at those steps and the processes you have there, you get a much better sense of the team engagement and how well they collaborate. The next is implementing diversity and inclusion initiatives. So this can come in many formats, whether it's diversity and inclusion based on race, based on gender, based on disability. When you make a point of being very vocal and very intentional about the inclusion and diversity efforts that you have in place, it can create a lot of trust within your staff and really signals to your staff that you care about their well-being and who they are beyond simply just the work that they're doing. In addition, it tells your staff that you're ready to bring in people from all walks of life that demonstrate the values of the company and are prepared to work hard towards your goals. So that's an incredibly valuable piece to your culture. And then the last part is introducing high quality benefits. So you may not always be able to provide benefits such as healthcare benefits and things like that to your hourly employees, but there are a number of different benefits that you can bring in for employees that increase their access to their paychecks, make it easier for them to earn, make it easier for you to meet them in the places that their life is at today. So some examples I like to talk about when it comes to introducing higher quality benefits. The first thing is programs like Daily Pay that enable employees to be able to get access to their paychecks earlier. So basically, as opposed to waiting the full 2 weeks for their paycheck, it allows them to be able to earn their income on a daily basis. And there's many different programs like this that allow, whether it's taking on their paycheck daily or weekly, giving them a really ample opportunity to be able to maximize their income, especially for hourly employees who are very dependent on that paycheck. In addition to that, tipping is one of those things where I think we've all seen the proliferation of tipping across our industry. We were all very familiar with it within fine dining, but now tipping is something that is seen across fast casual and quick service. And there are tools like Tip House that help you to create automated ways to calculate tips, distribute tips to your team members, whether that's front of house or back of house, so that everyone's a part of that collective experience. And when you introduce benefits like this, it signals to your employees that you're invested in a culture that's not just the words, but truly give them better systems to live their life. So with all of this in mind, we'll kind of lean in here to that total perspective when it comes to introducing the right kind of tick retention strategies. The first being training. Lean into your training, be very intentional, make sure that you have those measured ways of delivering training. So whether that's adding in a buddy system, making sure you have checklists, being in a position for those employees to truly succeed and to be able to ask the right questions. There are so many ways you can make your training systems really effective for your staff. Then the incentives. It's not just enough to just have a rewards program. You don't want to just have rewards for the sake of having rewards and recognition, and you don't want rewards that feel inconsistent. Have a true incentive program, something that's measurable, because your employees will appreciate knowing that if they meet a specific goal, there's a very specific reward associated with that. And it doesn't mean you have to incentivize every aspect of their work, but you don't want rewards to feel like something that is based on favoritism or some certain manager's sentiment towards one staff member. You want it to feel like something tangible that everyone can achieve. The next is culture. Be intentional about your culture. Spend time actually talking with your staff. Interview your staff members. Go in and try to monitor the work. Look at the exchanges between your front of house, your back of house, your shift changes, and really get a sense of how effective your culture is. And then in addition, bring in benefits for your employees that many times will come at no additional cost to you, but will make their lives easier. Whether that's solutions like adding in tipping and being able to more easily distribute and calculate that, or adding in solutions like daily pay that allow employees to get their paychecks earlier. Leveraging the tick retention strategy can be a really effective way of driving your retention, improving the overall experience for your employees, and creating a lot of value. So those are some of the core areas I wanted to cover in today's webinar. Before we go into the Q&A, I always like to end with a little bit of an overview of Social Crowd, just sharing a bit more on our employee incentive platform. So obviously, I covered a little bit on kind of an overview. I gave the example on how you could leverage Social Crowd for things like a sales incentive. But I like to lean in here just as a reminder that with a platform like Social Crowd, if you were looking to do employee incentives, you can incentivize a wide range of things across your staff, whether that's employee retention and you do rewards for making it to certain milestones, 60 days, 90 days, a year, and so on. But we have customers like Sonic Drive-In who leverage us to do things like incentives around order speed, food and safety scores, whether employees complete their trainings or not. And the great part is that it's all automated for them, so they don't have to track it themselves. You get great dashboards that kind of show the performance over time. Employees can see how close they are to their target. We always like to describe it as like a Fitbit or an Apple Watch for work, so they can see that in real time. But also for you guys as leaders, you get dashboards of how all of your teams are performing, how each individual is, and how that's broken down by your different locations. We can connect to tons of different apps. So whether it is a scheduling app and you want to track your time and attendance and incentivize that, your sales and your point of sale system, or even connecting to an HR system, we can provide integrations there. And then we enable you to have lots of ways for your employees to redeem their points for rewards. So whether they want to redeem their points for a gift card, or you want to set up a company store where employees can redeem their points for a company shirt, a free meal, and so on. Those features are there. And lastly, all IRA members get a guaranteed 15% off of Social Crowd. But in addition, we're doing an end of year special where anyone who signs up before December 31st gets an extra 20% off. So you get a total 35% in discount. So I've got that QR code there. You can feel free to scan that to schedule a demo. But as Teresa mentioned, all of this will be shared with you after the webinar. Feel free to reach out to me as well. That's my email down there. But now I'd love to open it up to some of our Q&A.
Thanks so much, Raphael. That was great. Yeah, let's get started with the Q&A. So I have one question here. Am I able to connect your platform to the sales platforms that we use at our restaurant?
Yeah, so we work with a ton of different point of sale systems. We work with really a number of different apps, and we've done tons of new integrations. So even if we don't have an existing integration, we typically take about a week to set up a new integration to connect with your sales system.
Great. Am I able to set a monthly redemption limit per employee for the rewards?
Yeah, that's actually one of the top features. So even if an employee has earned $1,000 in rewards for doing all of these great things, you can set a limit. So the max that they can redeem in a month is $50, or the max they can redeem is $100. And you can increase or decrease that at any time. As a good example there, one of our large customers, Sonic Drive-In, they've got a budget that they set for their the max redemption. So I think it's usually around $25 is the max employees can redeem in a month. But then for the holiday season, basically since Black Friday till now, they increased the budget to $100. So employees could use a lot of the points that they've earned to be able to go out, purchase Christmas gifts and things like that with their with the points that they've earned.
Great. And have you found that your programs work well within a smaller restaurant group or a single location?
Yeah, so we work with a lot of different operators. We have some of our customers who, one of the customers we have in California, it's a smaller juicery chain, and with that juicery chain, they've only got about 10 employees at their store, and they're able to leverage the platform. They have a lot of success. They've been using it to drive retention. A lot of their kind of manual rewards programs that they used to do, they've automated that now, so managers can go in and recognize employees within the platform, in addition to running things like sales targets and so on.
That's awesome. I think those are all of our questions. Did you have any closing comments? Any last words?
Yeah, if there's anyone who has questions about strategies for retention or ways that they could use some help around that, I'm happy to lean in and help there. Even aside from Social Crowd and our company, any advice that I can share there, I'm always happy to share that. And then obviously, like I mentioned as a last note, we are really proud of our partnership with the Illinois Restaurant Association. We want to make sure that anyone who's interested in our platform, we're able to provide you with a discount. This is ongoing. As long as you're a member of the Illinois Restaurant Association, you will always get a guaranteed 15% off. And that's just a part of our commitment to the association. So if there's any questions there or any interest, feel free to reach out. Feel free to scan the QR code. And we're excited to partner with you for your success, especially going into the new year. I think we've all got big goals for next year.
Definitely, very well said. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Rafael.
Yeah,
And like I said, following the conclusion of this webinar, we will receive, or attendees will receive email links to the recording as well as the presentation. Thank you all for attending. Happy holidays and have a great rest of your day.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Okay.